into the former president's potential mishandling of classified documents, where the special counsel Jack Smith is looking into possible obstruction. The former president addressed that probe at Mar-a-Lago on Tuesday night.
You have a radical left lunatic known as a bomb thrower who is harassing hundreds of my people day after day over the boxes hoax. You know, the boxes hoax, as we call it. They like to say that I'm obstructing, which I'm not, because I was working with NARA very nicely until the raid on my home.
Joining me now is James Trusty. He is one of the former president's attorneys in the classified documents case. Mr. Trusty, welcome to the press.
Morning.
Thank you for giving me a few minutes. I want to start with that Washington Post report this week. Let me read an excerpt from it. That they believe the special counsel is looking at obstruction of justice as a crime in this situation. Investigators now suspect, based on witness statements, security camera footage, and other documentary evidence, that boxes including classified material were removed from a Mar-a-Lago storage area after the subpoena was served, and that Trump personally examined at least some of those boxes. What's your client's response to this assertion?
Yeah, well, that it's nonsense. I mean, look, there's been a campaign of leaks from DOJ, unlike anything I've ever seen. I was a prosecutor for 27 years. I spent 17 at this Department of Justice. I don't recognize it anymore. They are consistently leaking. The angle they're pushing on the obstruction is to try to create some sort of daylight between Joe Biden's possession of documents and President Trump's. And it's not going to work. I mean, they have literally put in everybody to grand jury you could imagine. They don't respect any privilege that President Trump holds. And it's desperately trying to find an obstruction angle that just isn't there.
To these classified documents, Presidential Record Act is clear. There's no vagary here.
No, well, you're right, but I think you're misinterpreting the Presidential Records Act. You notice he didn't say, I did this, I possessed it. He said, I would have the right. He's correct. Under the Presidential Records Act, which is a non-criminal statute, that's the key. DOJ and political bureaucrats at NARA criminalize something using criminal tools, grand jury subpoenas, search warrants, for a statute that says, look, ex-presidents work with NARA, work with them for years, figure out what stuff they get. It took 18 years, I think, for Nixon's tapes to finally get to NARA. So there's a delay built into the process as they negotiate in good faith. In this case, NARA was hypersensitive, immediately trying to pounce on President Trump to say he's holding on to things he's not entitled to. But the remedy for all of that, if you have that fight between the archivist and the former president, is civil litigation. Okay. They jumped right past that with a very happy and willing DOJ.
Well, you say that, but they actually spent over 18 months before asking for a subpoena. He signed, he had a lawyer sign that he had returned all classified documents. So the problem is he actively misled NARA, so it forced a situation where they didn't know where else to turn other than the law. I mean, he himself lied via a lawyer, which has gotten that lawyer in trouble over years.
Well, you're putting together a whole bunch of hoops that don't actually connect. Look, NARA had 15 boxes given to them in January of 2022. 15 boxes, just here it is, take it, use these for archives. I've looked through those records, those documents, and you have a process. This is what every other president in history has gone through, is a process of communicating and resolving issues as to what stuff he wants to keep and what stuff he wants to give over.
None of it belongs to him. He has this mistaken feeling that none of it belongs to him. It belongs to the presidency.
Read the Personal Records Act, the Presidential Records Act. There is the ability of any president to deem things as personal, to say, I'm going to keep these as personal.
Sure.
If NARA disagrees, they can sue in D.C. That's not what happened.
I understand that,
here.
but he seems to, and you seem to be, I think, maybe unintentionally misrepresenting the law when you talk about Nixon. The law was passed after Nixon. Nixon had a case because the law wasn't in place. The law was effective with the Reagan presidency in 1981. Does Donald Trump think he should get paid? Is that what's going on here? Because Nixon got paid $18 million. Is he just holding these documents for some sort of financial settlement?
No, that's a cheap shot. Look,
he keeps bringing up this Nixon thing. What other reason is he bringing it up?
Let's go more modern day, because you're right about the timing of the Presidential Records Act. Bill Clinton had multiple recordings he kept in a sock drawer of his presidency while in the Oval Office, talking to foreign leaders, talking to advisors. He basically said, hey, that stays in my sock drawer. It's personal. NARA didn't blink. Obama Foundation had millions of documents in a former, I think, furniture store out in Illinois. Arguable whether it was ever really truly secured. They acknowledged that they had classified documents, probably to the tune of thousands. And there was never any blink by NARA. They, in fact, said, we're going to give NARA $3.3 million to help move these documents back eventually when we have a digitized library. That's never happened. Now, the payments may have happened, but that's never happened. NARA was perfectly comfortable accepting money for a move that won't happen for thousands of classified documents in some place near a McDonald's in Illinois, and never blinked. Never any criminal tools, never any criminal referrals. So look, this has a rotten underpinning in terms of bureaucrats being politicized, followed up by an all too eager DOJ to criminalize something that's not a crime. That was the point of the president's comment.
He has done with classified documents what no former president has ever done. I mean, you keep trying to say all of those situations you represent, there was actual cooperation by those former presidents to deal with the dispute. In this case, not only is he not cooperating, he is actively not cooperating. And again, he did not comply with a subpoena. That's the end of the day. That's the obstruction charge. Why didn't he comply with the subpoena? There was a subpoena for all classified documents. He did not comply with the subpoena. He was caught not complying with the subpoena because of the search warrant ended up turning up more classified documents. How do you explain him defying a subpoena?
Chuck, the Democratic narrative, which you're touting right now to try to draw a distinction
it's
between...
It's just a set of facts.
Well, let me finish.
Why call it a Democratic narrative? It's a set of facts.
Because you're ignoring a set of facts. Let's talk about Delaware. You've got a vice president that has documents for decades in this Chinese-funded Penn Biden Center, right? You've got absolute obstruction there because we don't even have any sort of...
How's that obstruction?
Because he had no right to have those documents.
Right. And
he didn't have any.
And did he refuse to turn them over when he found them?
Well, I don't know. It was hidden for so many months.
Again, did he turn them over?
Did his lawyers turn that over without any sense of chain of custody or any sorts of
Has the former president turned this over?
Well,
we
don't have the leaks coming from Rob Hur's investigation to know the details of exactly how stuff was turned over.
So is your defense that hey, we think other people broke the law, so let us break the law?
No, of course not. Of course not.
I mean, I just think that doesn't seem to be a good defense.
Chuck, the point of it is not to say that somebody else broke the law and we did too, it's okay. It's to point out that the common denominator, whether you're talking about New York, Georgia, or DOJ, is differential treatment for President Trump than anybody in history. And to sit there and whitewash Delaware and to wonder aloud about 1,800 boxes that are in the Delaware University that Biden put there. I mean, we are shut out from information about a much more egregious and intentional violation of the Presidential Records Act by Joe Biden, and perhaps even having documents that relate to Ukraine, of all places. That's pretty scary stuff. Now, I'm not saying anybody should be criminally prosecuted if you're a president or a vice president for having some of these documents in your possession or having people transport them to your home.
Let me ask you this. There's some reports that some classified documents were found on a laptop. They turned over a thumb drive. Can you guarantee that no copies of these classified documents still remain at Mar-a-Lago? Do you know this for a fact that there are no more classified documents at Mar-a-Lago?
Yeah, sure. And I can tell you the leak about what happened with this additional documents or several documents that were found in the thumb drive is absurd. We actually have a federal prosecutor that was in court that completely mischaracterized that. It's been the same mischaracterization that the media has run with to suggest that President Trump is just sitting on a mountain of documents. It's not true at all. It was a completely innocuous situation, 4,500 pages of documents with several mixed in that didn't stand out to a low-level staffer, period. When we found out that she had it, we said, did you ever make copies of this? Did it ever go anywhere? And we chased down the chain of custody in a professional manner and immediately turned that over to the FBI and DOJ. They try to run with that as obstruction. It's the exact opposite. Do
you know for sure whether the former president got involved with the unpacking and moving of the boxes or not?
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine? Does anybody in their right mind really think that Donald Trump came down to Mar-a-Lago while still president, I guess, in January, and said, hey, these are the boxes I packed. Let's be careful with those. That goes in the dining room. That goes in the closet.
He told Hannity he could.
No,
he is not denying any of this.
He said, I would have the right to. He didn't pack the boxes. Come on. I mean, that's like absurd to think that President Trump, in the middle of January of 2021.
He didn't say, I want to keep certain documents. You don't think he did that?
If you look at the boxes, as I have.
You make this to seem like it's hard to believe to anybody that has covered or spent time with the former president. I know you're new to him. It's perfectly. This is who he is.
So you're going to vouch for
I'm
him
just
packing
asking
the boxes.
I'm just
Chuck, come
asking,
on.
like,
I
the
mean,
idea that he wouldn't do this. He himself just said it.
Chuck, you
That he
listen
had
to what
every
he
right to
said.
it.
This is the third time I've had to correct you. It's, I would have the right. That's what he said to Hannity.
If he didn't do it, he'd say he didn't do it.
No, Chuck. He's making the point that it's not illegal for a president to possess documents like this. But the bottom line is, I'll make it clear to you, since you seem to be struggling with it. President Trump didn't sit there with masking tape and Sharpies and say, hey, let's sit down Indian style and start packing these boxes and send them tomorrow.
I don't think anybody's alleged he was sitting Indian style. I'll give you that.
Well,
let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. The former president has called Jack Smith a lunatic, a fully weaponized monster, a political hitman. You worked with Jack Smith at the Justice Department for quite a few years. Is that the Jack Smith you know?
Well, here's the point. I would say two things. One is, the president has every right to be frustrated by being politically targeted. I mean, we are crossing a Rubicon where prosecutors can announce, and this is the New York case specifically, and Georgia, hey, I'm going to run for office on the idea of taking down Donald Trump. That is flipping the whole idea. I mean, I was a prosecutor for 27 years. They are supposed to be...
Jack Smith, I'm not talking
well, let me
about,
finish. I'll
I'm
get
not
to
talking
Jack.
about,
I'm getting to Jack.
Okay.
It is... You know, you are supposed to be judicious. You're supposed to pursue the evidence where it takes you. You're to use your discretion as a prosecutor to do what's right.
You stand by the comments he's made about Jack Smith, calling him a monster and
I'm telling
a
you,
lunatic?
there's reason to be frustrated, and there's an unethical nature of this prosecution when the Attorney General holds a press conference that not even a local DA in Butte would do, because they know it's against the ethics of being a prosecutor.
So you stand by the president politicizing these attacks on Jack Smith?
No, look, the president he's a very resilient guy. He is a very opinionated guy. I'm not going to spend my time worrying about the politics, worrying about how his poll numbers are through the roof. I mean, I don't care about that stuff. I'm here in the legal lane, and he's got a right to be frustrated, but he's not just frustrated for himself. He's frustrated for the country.
All right, James Trusty, the attorney for the former president. I appreciate you coming on
and
expressing
Thanks.
the
Good seeing you,
president's
Chuck.
views.
It seems as though Trump's attorney James Trusty will not be re-invited back on Meet the Press after he really schooled Chuck Todd on the facts of this issue. But as usual, Chuck, you made your feeble attempt to demean, humiliate, and dishonor President Trump at every available opportunity given to you. It was a nice try, but people see right through you.